we now have dear friend Jerry Falwell Jr. calling in.
Yes, I'm here.
How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing well. Hope you are.
I'm doing great. I think we're going to dive in on a very intense subject, something that I know is near and dear to your heart, and that is Liberty basketball. The Liberty Flames are a giant killer this year. You've got to be just so proud.
Very much so.
What are they, 25-3?
25-3. As of last night, they beat North Florida, which is a really good team. And if they win one more home game, then the tournament, the ASUN tournament, will be held at Liberty. And I'm really hoping for that because I had to leave town for a few days, so I missed the game last night. And if we get the tournament, then I have 3 more home games I can attend. So I'm really hoping for that.
Well, you got Caleb Holmesley, you got Scotty James. I mean, Liberty basketball is exciting, and I'm excited for you and for Virginians. I mean, everyone should turn out and go to a game because a 25-3 team, I mean, you're going to the big dance, and you have an opportunity to take down some big giants, and that's awesome.
Well, Richard McKay done an incredible job after he worked under Tony Bennett. You know, he left Liberty and worked under Tony Bennett as an assistant coach for 6 years, and he learned so much, and then he came back. He was our coach back when Seth Curry played at Liberty before he went up to Virginia, and it turns out it was a smart move on his part. He picked up the experience and the knowledge that he needed to really be a great head coach, and it's just incredible what he's accomplished in just 3 years.
Well,
nobody expected it.
I'm more than thrilled for you all. I wanted to touch on politics for a little bit as well because I saw that you were a surrogate out in Iowa as you were 4 years ago for the president. And I just wanted to discuss, before we get to something Virginia specific, Donald Trump and the evangelical community. We have Mark Lotter, Director of Strategic Communications, coming on after you. We have Laura Trump coming on later. And then a dear friend of Liberty University, Charlie Kirk, is actually coming on in the 9 o'clock hour as well. So we have a jam-packed show, but tell me what you're seeing. What did you see in Iowa? You're a surrogate for the president. President loves when you get out there and speak to the evangelical community. What are you seeing?
Well, we went to a little town on the in the western part of Iowa called Denison, and it only had 8,600 people. At the high school or the middle school where they held the event, the room was packed outdoors, and it was not expected because, you know, when you have an incumbent president running, it's fait accompli who's going to win. So why turn out? But he had more votes in Iowa, and then he got in New Hampshire, than any incumbent presidents have had in the last 40 years. So it just shows you the excitement level. And the Democrats had about the same turnout as 2016, but the people we met with, I had to reassure them that Virginia hadn't gone crazy, that we Virginians were mostly just like they are, that it was just the northern Virginia, Washington suburbs that have taken over Virginia politics. And
well, that's what Governor Allen was just saying. I mean, you have Nova, and then you have Rova, right? You have the rest of Virginia, and then you have Northern Virginia, and the two are not the same. They're not simpatico.
That's it. Well, it's a good way to put it, but the founders, I don't know if you want to talk about that issue right now.
Oh, I do. I love what you have to say.
Well, the founders have the intention of creating a federal district where everybody who worked for the federal government lived there because they have a conflict of interest, and the idea was they shouldn't be voting in any state. Well, they never anticipated that the Washington, D.C., the District of Columbia would become 30 times as large as it was when it was created and sprawl out into Virginia and Maryland. And so it's we need to go back to the founders' intent and have the whole of District of Columbia, the whole Washington suburbs added to the District of Columbia. That would solve the problem. But until we control all 3 branches of government, that's not going to happen. So our only option right now is to try to get counties to put referenda on the ballot for this fall to to leave Virginia, go to West Virginia. I was just reading an article in the Washington Times while I was waiting for you. 5 different states now are following suit. Different.
VEXIT is what I guess we'll have to call this. VEXIT. Well, I think it's a very interesting. I think it's a very interesting proposal. I'm looking at your quote here, and it says, "What's happening in Virginia right now is a tragedy in the making. Democratic leaders in Richmond, through their elitism and radicalism, have left a nearly unrecognizable state in their wake." So, I mean, you're down in Lynchburg, speaking to the people of Virginia. How can they go do this? How can they, if they don't agree with and or even see themselves in the state that they once loved and grew up in, what do they do?
Well, the VEXIT organization is creating a website where they can go to the website and click on their county and sign the petition to have it put on the ballot in their county for this fall. When a county votes to leave, West Virginia legislature has already approved it, or will have already approved it. Virginia legislature, if they don't approve it, here's what most people don't understand: the county can still go to the courts and leave. So that's the part that hasn't been told in the press. It's not a dead deal just because everybody knows Richmond won't support it.
Right.
Counties actually have redress to the courts. So, this has happened before with West Virginia. It's happened when Kentucky was split off Virginia, 1792. And, of course, wars have been fought over. The Revolutionary War, the Civil War have been fought over, what government we're going to be under. But we want to do it peacefully. And I think it's what happened in Poland. Poland, with the Solidarity movement, they just peacefully decided they had enough of the Soviet Union. And so that's our goal. And like I just said, I was just reading this morning, 5 more states have followed suit already. And so they each have their own movements and their own names for their respective exit movements, but it's catching fire.
Well, I think California has been attempting to do this for a very long time. I mean, the northern part of California has always been essentially unrecognizable from the southern part of California. So there is precedent.
California, New York, Illinois, let me think, Idaho and Oregon I already mentioned. There's one more, but I can't think what it is right now.
Well, it's a very impressive notion that you're putting forth, and I know that Governor Jim Justice is supportive of it. So I think everyone's kind of waiting with bated breath to see exactly how this plays out. Pivoting back to the election as a whole, evangelicals are a massive swath of voters that the president should shore up, and I believe he already has shored them up. But what are you seeing in the Democratic nomination process? I mean, no one seems to be reaching out to people that the president speaks to, meaning this large swath of religious voters. Do you think that they just don't care this time around? I mean, that's normally a hotly contested pool of voters.
Well, in 2008, when McCain lost to Obama, I realized then that no establishment Republican was ever going to beat a liberal Democrat again. They still ran another one in 2012, Mitt Romney, and again, they lost. Evangelicals, like most average conservative Americans, have been portrayed by the Republican establishment for decades, and they finally woke up and realized that this class of professional politicians that had emerged in the 20th century, probably after World War I, really didn't have the best interest of the people they claim to represent at heart. And so I think you see same thing happening on the Democratic side with African American voters. They're waking up to being betrayed as well by the Democratic Party. And so it's an incredible populist movement on both sides, and it's with evangelicals, Buttigieg and Pelosi will make comments every now and then about, well, it's unchristian not to have an open border, or it's unchristian not to raise the minimum wage. But they in saying things like that, they're ignoring the fact that America was never intended to be a theocracy. Thomas Jefferson, in the Declaration of Independence, he didn't say we hold these truths to be biblical. He said we hold these truths to be self-evident. And most evangelicals who oppose late-term abortion, they do so not because there's a Bible verse that says thou shalt not commit abortion. It's because they have common sense. And it's just, I think what we've seen with Trump is finally, after being betrayed by all these Republican establishment nice guys who never seem to get anything done, we finally got a fellow who was willing to sacrifice his, like in the Declaration, they said, we've pledged to each other our lives, our sacred honor, our fortunes, our sacred honor. He's the first candidate for president that actually was willing to do that and just to go to war and be excoriated for the last 3.5 years every day.
He stood strong.
And I don't think any of these establishment Republicans could have withheld or could have withstood what he's withstood. And he's a fighter, and that's what our people have been looking for. I'm not going to be fooled anymore by people who talk a big game and and portray themselves as good family men or good family women or good people of faith. It doesn't matter. What matters is what are your positions on the issues and what are you going to do to fight for the average American? And that's where Donald Trump is almost standing alone. And he, I think he's going to win by a landslide.
I do too, especially with who they could potentially have leading their ticket. Well, Jerry, I want to thank you so much for coming on. Go Liberty Flames.
Well, it's great to be on the show finally, John. I'm honored, and thanks so much for focusing on my basketball team.
You got it. Have a good one.
All right.